friend, happy Monday. If you're just joining us for the first time, my name is Jennifer Malloway. I'm a dog trainer and behavior consultant, and it is my job to help you have the most magical relationship with your dog you can possibly imagine. Also, if it's your first time here, be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube or like or follow on Facebook so that you catch all of these videos because there's lots of cool stuff coming down the line. So for everybody here today with me, how are you doing? It's a Monday, but it's sunny here and we made it out to the dog park, so we're having a pretty good day. But considering how dreary a lot of Mondays can be, I thought that we would talk about something pretty cool and fun. Pretty much the coolest thing I've learned in training. To be fair, I think everything is cool that I learned. Ever since I started learning, started my journey of learning more about dogs and dog training, I think it's all really, really cool because when I learn something new, in this realm of behavior, I recognize it for what it is, which is a technology. And I know that a lot of you who are watching me these days live in that world of technology that computers and the internet and things like that. And while behavior science may not be technology in that sense, like it's not computers, although we can use electronics and that sort of thing in training, and that stuff's really cool too. It's a technology in the sense that it's something that can provide solutions to problems, something that is replicable and transferable and reliable. And once you see how it works, it kind of blows your mind. At least it does me. So that's kind of like everything I learn. I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. How can we use this? So cool. But some things, I don't know, stand out more than others. So I thought I'd share what I find to be the neat things today. And hi, construction cronies. Thanks for being here. How are you doing? So I don't know, like I could talk pretty much all day, every day about this, like behavior science things, because it's amazing and like it affects all of us every minute of our lives. And so like, I don't know, like there's few things as relevant as that to everybody. So oh, thank you. He says my studio and everything is looking and sounding excellent. That's good. I'm glad to know things are working because they're not all the time. So it's good to hear when they are. Yeah. So the other reason that I wanted to kind of just talk about something fun and cool is because I mean, I'm here on Facebook and YouTube using video to try and share information and skills and just help people with their dogs, solving problems with their dogs. And there are other forms of media, namely television shows, which are often spread misinformation that can be very damaging if people take it as helpful, useful information and try and apply it at home. And there's this is the case with almost every TV show related to dog training that I've ever seen or heard of. And there's a new one that just came out. Maybe you've seen it. I'm not gonna advertise for it here because I don't want to give it undue attention, but just to say that the dog training community, the positive reinforcement dog training community, is a little bit heartbroken this week because we our jobs are pretty much, I mean, they're helping people with their dogs and yeah, but a lot of it is also undoing the damage that's caused by these TV shows and spreading that misinformation. So, but the thing is, that's what gets put on television because they make it dramatic and flashy and it's big personalities, and it's like that's what draws advertising dollars, right? But unfortunately it's bad for dogs and it's bad for people. So yes, might be flashy and dramatic, but I think that the sciencey side can be, I was about to say just as, but I dare I say even more sexy, if I may. So yeah, so that's why I'm here today. That's why I want to talk about just some cool stuff, because it's fun. So um, and the other reason is just like the more you know, like when you know things that can influence behavior, you in real time, like it just makes you feel really powerful, which sounds bad, kind of, but like it does. um, and when you know things that can make your life and the lives of everybody around you, including dogs, better, it makes you feel good. And like, who doesn't want to feel good and powerful? Like that's I mean, that's what we strive for, right? Like that's what everybody wants. So and this technology, this information is what gets you there. So I think, like I said, everything I learn is in behavior is really cool. But a couple of the things that I don't know that I they make me excited are like being able to first of all being able to like watch behavior change in real time, like when you are actively training a dog or training any animal, um to like watch them, like the wheels turn and watch like them shift their behavior, like you actually see learning happen. You're like, it's like mind-blowing and it's cool, and like that's what I mean by like feeling powerful. You're like, I did that, that's amazing. um and and like especially when that the kind of shift in behavior is like a scared dog who's just gaining confidence and they're really like coming out of their shell and they're doing more and they're interacting more, and like that is something special. um seeing dogs love the process of learning. Like I mean, I'll admit, I mean, I love training my dog Dizzy, um and I should do more of it, but you know, sometimes life gets in the way. So I'll admit, like I haven't been doing as much with him lately. So I started just working on something for fun over the last couple days, and like it kind of hit me in the face how much he enjoys the process. Like, and I just use his food. Like I don't I don't I mean, I do have like special treats for special training things, like when I'm training recall, I use some like the higher value stuff. But when I'm just training like tricks around the house, I'm just using his regular food. His I don't it's not called kibble. Like I use Robble brand freeze dried food, and sometimes from Spot and Tango, it's called unkibble. But like, it's just his regular diet, and he's gonna get it every day, whether we do training or not. But when I like set up a training session, got that food ready, and like to see the look on his face, I was like you've been missing this, buddy, and I'm so sorry. Like I feel bad that he hasn't been able to work for his food in that way, because he really enjoys it. He really enjoys the process, and you can see that on your own dog's face. Like they're like, yeah, they could eat their food out of a bowl. That's fine. They love the food, so it's great. It's a win for them. But when they get to like work for it, when they get to use their brain and like figure out a puzzle that you're presenting for them, which is essentially what training is. You're like, guess what I want you to do? That's the game. Um, but when it's a game that they can win, like I don't know, like I wish I could capture it on video for you. I'll try at some point. Um, but just like his eyes sparkle, you know, he's like, yes, this, yes, let's do this, awesome. And it's, I don't know. So like when you see those little things, like that's, I mean, this is why I am so hooked on on learning myself, and on training. Like, I don't know, that brings me a lot of joy and a lot of like entertainment. um, so I don't know. Am I striking a nerve here with anybody? Like, for those of you watching, like, if you've got a dog, you've probably done some training with them. Like, have you experienced this? Like, have you ever seen, like, have you ever felt like really cool and powerful when you actually like get them to do what you want, for one? And for two, have you ever seen that look like they're like, yes, let's do the training? Because I think it's special. I think it's cool. Um, so yeah, I mean, and for me as a trainer, like, because I do this as my profession and I get to help people teach their dogs these things, it's like a whole other layer of like cool excitement for me, because I get to see people looking at their dogs in awe and with pride at like what their dogs can do, and seeing that look on people's faces is really rewarding for me. Like, I love, I don't know, like when people think that their dogs are really cool, like that's a cool moment for me. um so yeah, like, I don't know, all of this is why I get so excited, so jazzed about it. Um, but there's a million things I could tell you about training and about behavior that I think are cool. But let me get down to the thing. Like, I don't know. I don't even want to say it's the coolest thing because everything is so cool. But like, it's one thing that I was like, wow, that's kind of amazing. So one of the coolest things that I have learned about training is that when dogs are presented with a known cue, so the cue for a behavior that they know very well, they will get a higher spike of dopamine in their brain from hearing the cue or seeing the cue if it's visual than they do from actually receiving the reward that they earn for doing the behavior. And there are so many implications of this that it, like, I'm just like, this is amazing. Like, how can we use this? Like, what does that mean for how we train? Like, and I'm gonna get to all that. But like, just think about that. Like, if and just like an example, like, your dog probably knows sit really, really well. And if it was trained using rewards, then they're probably really excited when they hear the word sit, because they're like, I know how to earn rewards. This is amazing. I have a job to do and it's going to end up good for me. Like, everything is great. And then of course they earn a cookie for the sit and everyone's happy. So yeah, like how cool is that? Like, by you giving them a command or a cue, as I prefer to call it, produces more of this hormone, is it? Dopamine, than when you actually give them a treat. Like, I don't know. That's to me is amazing. Sarah, that is totally cool. Yeah, isn't it though? And Construction Crony says, my mom trained dogs and horses. Oh wow. And my sister still does. Me, I suck at training, but I love them so much. Love dogs, horses, and birds. I'd never cage a bird. Oh man. Do they have, do your mom and sister, you say they trained horses and horses and dogs, but not birds? No bird training? My sister's got a bird, and I don't know, like, I really wish I lived closer because I would love to try some bird training. We watched a webinar on bird training recently, and I'm like, oh, like, I would love to be able to work with her little green cheek conure. He's cute. But yeah, that's totally cool. Yeah, I mean, I would love to work with any other species, really. Like, that's really exciting. Dogs are awesome, but yeah, any trainer who gets to work with like another species, like, that's pretty cool. That's amazing. No birds, I see. That's awesome. Oh, I'm so jealous. My sister actually teaches horse riding lessons in Missouri, but but yeah, I never had as much experience with them as she did. Um, but yeah, birds fascinate me too, and they are beautiful. And like, and the cool thing about training horses or birds or pretty much any other species besides dogs is that like I can't even say, like, I can't even put my finger on exactly why, but like people tend to kind of force dogs into these situations, because we can, because dogs are very tolerant, but a lot of other types of animals are not, and so they take away our choices, in some scenarios, um, of like our choices of being able to just like force them to do things. So if you want to train really cool stuff, you have to get really good at using positive reinforcement and offering the animal the choice and the control, to choose to participate. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck. You're not going to get anywhere. So training other species really hones your the trainer's skills, and that's good for everybody involved, I think. So, uh, yeah. So that's really exciting. That's got to be really fun for your family, having grown up around those around other animals. Um, but um, yeah. So okay, so dogs get a bigger hit of dopamine from hearing a known cue than they do from receiving the actual reward, and this means that your cues for positively trained behaviors can be more powerful than the treats that you're using, right? Um, and it also means that the more training that you do, meaning the more cues that you have available, the more rewards you have available. Like, so it builds on itself as you do more of it, and which means that your relationship, your bond with that animal is growing. The more ways that you have to communicate, it like it's just this bubble. It just like explodes into this amazing thing. Um, and so yeah, so your cues can actually turn into reinforcers for behavior. So we did a whole show on how to, like, when can you stop using food for training, and spoiler alert, I don't think that you ever need to stop using food, but when you have more, of a wider variety of reinforcers, you don't have to rely on food as much, which I think is what everybody wants. And this is one way to start to get you build your own tools, you build your own reinforcers, and that's pretty cool. So this is there's so many directions we could go with this, but I think, um, first of all, let's specify. Let's get really, a little bit more detailed about like what is dopamine, because if anyone, like if any of you have been on the internet ever, um, you've probably heard of dopamine. Dopamine and serotonin are talked about a lot, because we've learned a lot about them in recent decades. But originally, uh, dopamine was thought to be like very closely related with pleasure, and it is, but it's more like a specific kind of pleasure, um, and I'll explain as best I can. So dopamine is, I mean, it doesn't do just one thing, right? Dopamine is associated with movement and thinking and attention and sleeping and your mood and motivation, and that last one, the motivation piece, is what we're really interested in, if as animal trainers, all of us, um, because, um, if if a spike in dopamine, increases the like an animal, and this goes for humans too. We're human animals. It causes us to want to seek out rewards, or um, yeah, anything. I mean, it causes us to seek, to be curious, to want to learn. It's really about wanting, and receiving a reward, like food, is about liking. So you've got these two systems of wanting and liking, and they work together. Um, but wanting is about that motivation. It's about movement. It's about seeking, and then receiving the thing is about, okay, like now I have this thing and I like it, but it decreases the motivation temporarily. So it's like this cycle. You seek out something, and then you're satiated, and then you seek out, and it's kind of the reason we uh why we like scrolling on Facebook, or it's because, or at least the reason that we stay there is because we want more. The act of, or the state of wanting, causes us to stay there and like search for more. And like actually reading, or reading or watching stuff on social media platforms, like it's nice, but we stay because the seeking and the wanting. Um, so wanting things feels good. So that's why I say it, like it is a pleasure, but it's a specific kind of pleasure. But that is actually more powerful than getting what you want. And it is the same reason why we humans are never happy, never satisfied. Like we think we want all these things, nice car, fancy house, blah blah blah. Like, and you can work really really hard to get there, like whatever your goals are. Maybe those aren't your goals, like I don't know, I don't particularly care about having a nice car, but as long as I can get around. um, but whatever your goals are, having the goal is what carries the meaning. It's like it's what keeps us going. And no matter what your goal is, like you work really really hard to get there, you've got that, and then you need to set another goal, because if you got your goal, then you're like, okay, like now what? Like that state of being isn't going to last very long. It's not. And isn't it true that it's never it's never like as spectacular as you thought it was going to be? It's because the what happens in our minds, like our imagination about what that goal is going to feel like and be like that is, I don't know. It's just it's why we have to keep setting goals for ourselves. Like that's what keeps people going. It's what keeps people out of depression. Um like I don't know, to me, like that's what life is all about. So understanding like how that affects us, and how it influences our behavior, like I said, can have many many implications. But let's get back to the dog training piece, and talk about how we can use this and how this affects our dogs or our animals, if you're whatever animals you have. So one of the things that, or one of the implications of this, has to do with another really cool concept, called contra freeloading. And what that is, if you've never heard of it, is this phenomenon where an animal will, when presented with food freely available, along with the identical food that they have to work for, animals will choose to work for their food. They prefer, to have to work for their food, even if the food is the same. And this has been observed in many, many species. I mean, bears and chimpanzees and rats and giraffes and elephants and wolves and of course dogs, squirrels. I don't know. It's we I mean, based on the number of animals that we've observed, I would assume that this is true for pretty much any living being. It's part of the just the state of being alive, that you need to want things, you need to feel motivated to work for things. That's kind of what life's all about, really. And so we slapped a label on it, called it contra freeloading, when we're talking about animals working for food. And it is why it's why I talk about, ditching the dog bowl in favor of food puzzles and enrichment puzzles, ways that dogs can like work for their food. It's why I say it's a kindness to actually do this, to make them work, is because not only do we know that this phenomenon of contra freeloading is happens, but also it it allows them to express their species specific behaviors, and this is of course what type of food puzzles, what type of enrichment toys um, you provide are going to depend on the species that you're working with, because part of what makes it enrichment is that they do get to express whatever species or whatever behaviors are normal for their species. So for our dogs, we like to offer ways for them to sniff around and maybe dig with their paws and bite and tear, and just things that dogs do. Like if you let your dog free in the world to do whatever they wanted, what would they do? You'd see a lot of sniffing and digging and and chewing. So offering them ways to get to express those behaviors is a kindness. It feels good to them, um, and provides mental stimulation so that they get to use those brains that they've spent thousands of years, no, millions of years evolving. Um, it's it's a way to take better care of our dogs. It's why I talk about the whole enrichment and dishing the bowl a lot, because it's so good. Hey, Say, welcome. She says, I'm late, but no worries. Facebook didn't notify me. Oh, bad Facebook. Naughty. But welcome. We are just talking about mainly the fact that dogs get a higher spike of dopamine upon hearing a known cue than they do on receiving the actual reward. Like, how amazing is that? And Sarah says the dopamine squirt is also related to addiction. If satiety, I can't pronounce that right now, isn't in balance. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, heck, even the Facebook scrolling is an addiction, right? Like, I have a problem. It's a bit out of control, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, dopamine does a ton of things, but it's really, really important to this motivation cycle. Say says, I got to play with Coco and food this weekend. He loved it. What did you do? Share with us what you tried. I was looking up, just looking for some new ways to take what I've got around the house to make food puzzles for Dizzy, and that's what we're going to talk about on Friday. So if you're looking to get creative, join us on Friday. I'm going to try and put these things together live, and then we can see how Dizzy enjoys them too. So yeah, and oh, hi Maggie. She says, is this specific to breed as well as species? So the type of enrichment puzzles that you provide, it could but it's less important. I mean, the way that the whole like contra freeloading works, like that is the same regardless of species. And when it comes to training, like, also pretty much doesn't matter the species, so definitely doesn't matter the breed. But as far as providing like certain types of enrichment puzzles, I've never heard anybody talk about like when it comes to dogs seeking out food. Most dogs, like, you can give dogs like of any breed the same puzzle, and they might find different ways to figure it out. And I would say it comes down more to the individual dog than anything having to do with breed. Breed differences matter in some ways. Like, you got to know, if you've got a terrier, you got to know that that's going to influence how much they want to chase other critters, or possibly how much they want to dig, or how much they want to bark. But it helps more with just like understanding who your dog is, than and like what kind of opportunities you want to provide them, than anything having to do with training. and the reason I say that is because there's a, like, you hear a lot of people say that, like, certain breeds uh need a heavier hand in training and things like that, and that's a bunch of bull honky, because if we can train tigers and elephants and killer whales with positive reinforcement, there is no reason why a certain breed of dog would need anything anything different. Like, yeah, so that's why I tread lightly around when we talk about breed differences, but mainly it just helps people understand who their dog is. um, so yeah, say thank you. She says, I love how Jennifer tackles training as building a relationship with your dogs rather than being conflictive and scolding doggos when they misbehave. It really has changed a lot how I interact with my doggos. Has it? I'm glad to hear that. Because I mean, that doesn't feel good for anybody. Like, no one wants to feel like something's a battle with their dog, right? And a lot of times all it takes is a mindset shift, and all of a sudden it's not you against your dog. It's you and your dog figuring out ways to have both of your needs met. And, like, I don't know, like, say you can speak to this, like, as far as your experience goes, like you can solve the problems that you have, but it just feels better to me, to be like, okay, like, what can we do, to make sure that this is okay for you, and, like, I can live with it. I don't know. Say says, I tried calling Coco with food. As you know, beagles do not want to come inside, so I'm trying to get him to associate something positive when I call him into the house. And is it helping? Is it working? Um, I think, one of the I'm trying to put together some more classes, um, that I can offer in the coming months, and I'm thinking I definitely need to do a recall workshop, um, because that's such a common behavior that people really want to work on, and that's essentially what that is, calling the beagles inside. Um, but I'm hoping to hear that you've been you've been making progress on your own anyway. Um, yeah, so, um anyway, so yeah, so that contra freeloading thing, like, that in and of itself is pretty cool. But it's associated with that, the joy of work. Like, and I feel like we can really, like, as humans, we can really relate to this. Like, I don't know about you, but it's like, after a long day, maybe you've done a lot of, like, physical exercise, like, or you just, like, worked really hard, like getting to come home and eat dinner after that versus eating dinner after, like, sitting around and watching TV all day. Like, that meal just is, like, it feels better. And I think it's not that we had to, like, actually hunt down our meat, and maybe we didn't even have to do the cooking, but like, it feels better when you've done work. For us humans, like, I mean, cooking is essentially working for our food, right? But also, going to your job it's a secondary, you work to earn the money that buys the food. Same thing. But it, like, that, I mean, I'm thinking of so many examples. Like, working at all feels better than being handed everything for free your whole life. I think it's, I mean, heck, like, not to get political at all, but, like, it's why when people say that, like, giving people handouts would cause, like the whole UBI thing, um when people say that just, like, giving people money for free would make us lazy and people would quit their jobs and, like, all these things, like, I think that's a bunch of bull honky, because people enjoy work. Like, there is joy in working for the things that you need in life. Like, feeling accomplished, like, is its own reward. And I mean, yeah, maybe there are people here and there that would be like, yeah, I don't think it would last forever. I don't think it would last very long, because we need to work. We're animals, and our animals need to work. And yeah, and it's also, like, why when I've talked about contra freeloading in the past, like, people will take this and they'll go home and they'll be like, I tried to make my dog work and he just looked at me like I was crazy and I had to put it in the bowl. Like, he wouldn't eat unless I just fed him in the bowl. And that can happen. If the dog has spent its whole life just getting free fed, they've never had to work for their food, it can, because it can be confusing, and they're like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, this is just totally like not been what my lifestyle is. But those animals can be taught to work for their food. And like once they've been taught, like then you'll see them enjoying that way more. Then you can do this test where you can offer them the food and offer them their puzzle, and they'll choose the puzzle every time. So sometimes it just takes them having to learn, but um, but yeah, like at the end of the day, given the opportunity to learn and the opportunity to work for their food, all of us, human and non-human animals alike, we got to work for our own rewards. We got to work for that income. Um, and yeah, going back, she says, absolutely, much healthier way to tackle a relationship, especially with 4 dogs. Yes. Oh, and yeah, he certainly paid more attention to me than he normally does. Good. Still a work in progress. And it always is. I mean, that's what a relationship is. It's constantly work, but totally worth it, right? As social beings as we are, we work to have good relationships, and it's the same. Oh, I'm like, my brain feels like it's exploding right now. I'm like, yes. Yes, good first step. So um but yeah, that's contra freeloading. And it kind of leads me to, we got to talk about um like these different categories of reinforcers, or rewards. So when I talk about training dogs with food, or humans working for their food, what we're talking about there is called a primary reinforcer, because it's something that we need to survive. No animal survives without food. So because it's essential, we call it a primary reinforcer. But those aren't the only reinforcers that we can use to influence behavior. It's not the only reinforcers that we as animals will work for. And I've already mentioned one. So you've got primary reinforcers, then logically, you've also got secondary reinforcers. And secondary reinforcers are usually learned. So primary is that stuff, like I said, that's essential for life. An animal just is born into the world knowing that they need these things. They come into the world ready and willing to work for primary reinforcers. Secondary reinforcers, like I said, are learned. So through life experience, we learn that secondary reinforcers can predict primary reinforcers. So it's one step removed, but still very, very valuable. And like I said, I mentioned one, money is a secondary reinforcer, because it's something that my behavior can be influenced. If someone offers me money, then I'm like, yeah, I'll do work for that money, because I know that that money can get me primary reinforcers like food, like shelter. And I mean, that's like the most common and most obvious example. But when we're working with our animals, a secondary reinforcer, like, they may not understand currency, although studies have been done, and they're fascinating. Um, but um, but it doesn't have to be that complicated. A secondary reinforcer is what I'm using when I click Dizzy, for a behavior. That click tells him, because I've taught him, that click means a treat is coming, and it becomes this really powerful way to communicate to him in very precise timing what he did that I liked, what it was that he did that earned him that primary reinforcer, the treat, or the food. And so the click is something that, like, all of a sudden it has value. Like I said, when I set up stuff to train, he knows what's going on. He's like, oh, you got the gates out, or you got the platforms out, or you're standing in a specific spot or a specific position. He's like, oh, sweet, it's on, we're training. And if I took like a slow motion video of him, like me asking him to do a thing, you'd probably see very subtle changes in his behavior when I ask him. Of course, then ideally the behavior that I'm asking for happens. And then you'll see something when he hears the click, and then when I present the food for him to eat. Because those are learned, recognizable things, and they affect what's happening in his brain, obviously. So the click is going to give him like this dopamine, telling him that he's earned a primary reinforcer. But even hearing a cue, like one that he knows well, like that gets it all rolling, right? So the click is a secondary reinforcer. But when I'm talking about that cue, that, that's even one step removed. If that's going to be used as something that can reinforce other behaviors, that's like I said, a step removed from the click. So that's a tertiary reinforcer, and we have those as well. I was having trouble coming up with other examples of tertiary reinforcers in our human day-to-day life, but a commonly cited example is like a casino chips, because I mean, and I don't go to casinos and I don't gamble, but I can understand the concept, right? If you earn casino chips, those are traded for money, which are traded for your food, your shelter, your primary reinforcers. And so they're valuable, they are worth working for, and they are why people keep going to the casinos. If they earn those at certain games or at certain machines, they're going to stick with those games. And Sarah, to your point, like that's why gambling can be addictive. It's almost like, it's crazy, but it's almost like the further you get from like the things that you actually need, the more powerful those reinforcers are, like on a brain level. I don't know. I mean, it's how it looks to me. I don't know if that's actually true, but like, I don't know. When you get to like addiction, like that's some powerful stuff. So, so you've got these primary, these secondary, and tertiary reinforcers, and the cue, like I said, is a tertiary reinforcer. And what is a reinforcer, right? That's something that you can use to change your dog's behavior. If I give my dog a cookie every time he sits, yeah, he's gonna sit more often. But then if the word coming out of my mouth, if me saying sit, through his learning history, becomes a reinforcer for my dog, like, where can you see where I'm going with this? Like, then if I want my dog to do something else, like I don't know, I say I'm going to use you and your beagles as an example, but like say that you call your beagle inside, and then you give them a cue that they know well, like sit. Asking them to sit is going to reinforce the behavior that just occurred, which would be coming inside. And when they sit, they get an opportunity for a click and a treat. And hopefully it's a very, very good treat because you've just recalled, and then you've asked for two behaviors, meaning that you've built this nice little sequence. And so it becomes a good way to get more behavior for less of the primary stuff, which means you're using less food in training, but getting more behavior that you like out of it. And like that's the coolest thing about it, right? So yeah, so you just think about like how that happens. Like if all of a sudden you're like, okay, like all the stuff that my dog knows well and has been trained using positive reinforcement, like you've all of a sudden got all these other tools at your disposal. Like now when your dog is doing something that you want to reward and you don't have a cookie on your person, you can ask them for something that they enjoy doing and that like, and the reason I keep saying that they have to know it well and it has to be trained using positive reinforcement is because because of all the reasons that we say we don't use any punitive or adversarial training methods is because that introduces confusion. It introduces um, negative feelings into the training, and if you're training that way, you're baking that confusion and worry into the behavior and into the animal and into the relationship. And once you've baked a cake, like, it's hard to pull individual ingredients out, right? So you want to bake your cake with just sugar and flour, and I don't know, I don't bake, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you want to make it right from the beginning, because then you've built up these nice little cues, that have, like, your dog. Maybe there's a better way to say this. So it's like if I sat down to try and do something, or if someone asked me to do something, and I know how to do it, I'm gonna be very much more likely than if I was asked to do something that I don't know how to do. Because if I'm not confident in my own abilities, if I don't know that I can be successful, um, I mean, there's gonna be a lot more anxiety that I'm experiencing in the process of like, just like trying to figure out. And there's gonna be, I mean, this is a human thing because of our language. We can think in this way, but it's like, am I gonna disappoint them? Like, am I gonna be a failure? Like, is it gonna be good? Like, am I? It doesn't feel good to set out on a task that, like, you don't know how to do. But when we gain skills, when we do things that we're confident about, it just feels so much better, right? And while dogs may not go through all of those, like, they may not have the cognitive abilities for all of that, self-doubt and imposter syndrome and guilt and blah, blah, like, they may not do all of that, but on a much more basic level, it still feels better to them when you ask them to do something and they're like, yes, I know the answer. I know how to earn that reward. I am confident. Like, that feels so much better. So if you teach it well, teach it with positive reinforcement, then that's how you get those cues that can serve as reinforcers. Okay, so what I do is that I call him inside and play with him. Perfect. Okay, so play's good. I give him a treat when he comes inside, and once he's there with me, I scatter stuff on the floor for him to find, and he absolutely loved it. Okay, so that's awesome. So we could talk for a whole another hour about play and, like, how incredibly powerful play is. So don't change a thing. You're rocking it. Play is so amazing. In fact, okay, just small detour, but I read today that there was a study done, and I can't cite the details. I'd have to go back to the book and find it for you, but because I was just reading this for my own pleasure. But there was a study done where dogs were trained using the same methods, and then after the training was done over with, one group of dogs was taken to rest, not sleep, but just rest and with their people, and the other group was taken to go play after the training. And then the next day, both groups of dogs were brought back and taught a new task, and the dogs that had gotten to play after training learned that new task almost twice as fast as the group that did not get to play. I don't know, like, I didn't get to finish reading because I wanted to come here and be with you guys, but just to speak to, like, how incredibly powerful play can be. And I mean, it has a million more benefits than that, but, like, yeah, play is amazing. Play is a great reward, and I would say it's a primary reinforcer. So it's like all of your secondary and tertiary reinforcers, like, they always have to be backed up by the primary reinforcer, because, like, I mean, think about it. If you work really hard at your job, you earn your money, and then some days your money's accepted for food, but some days the grocery store is like, no, sorry, like, we don't take money today. Like, your money's going to lose its value pretty fast, like, that doesn't make any sense. If your casino tokens, like, if some days they just won't give you cash for them, like, that, like, it ruins the whole game. So yeah, so they always, I should have said this before, but they always have to be backed up by primary reinforcers. But like I said, you can use them to get more from your animals. So yeah. There's okay, so there's another like cool training thing that I feel is related. Um and that is actually, say you gave us a perfect segue. So there is something we call the Premack principle, um, named for a guy named, is it David? I want to say it's David Premack, but oh God, I hope I'm not wrong about that. No, let's Google it. Premack principle. It is David Premack. Okay, fabulous. Okay, whew, I don't feel like an idiot. But anyway, the Premack principle is uh, the idea that a behavior, and this does get species specific again, perhaps breed specific, but actually, it just mostly comes down to the individual. But a behavior that is more likely can be used to reinforce a behavior that is less likely. A nickname for the Premack principle is also called Grandma's rule, which is, if you eat your veggies, then you get dessert. Because eating dessert is a highly probable behavior, whereas eating veggies is a low probability behavior. But this, like, and the reason I say that you gave us a perfect segue is because playing is, for many animals, a highly probable behavior that can be used to reinforce a lower likelihood behavior, like coming inside. So that's excellent. And we can use this in a lot of ways. So like, if we stick to dogs, like what are highly probable behaviors? Like I mentioned earlier, like if you just let your dog free, or dogs free to do whatever they wanted, without any input or influence from you, what sort of things would they do? Like, I mean, and you guys can tell me, like, for your individual dogs, what would they do first? Like, if you just, I don't know, say you open the door, and like, one, would they exit the door? Like, is that a high probability behavior for most of your dogs? Um, I would say a great many dogs. Yep. Going outside, highly probable, which means that opening that door to let them go outside can be used to reinforce other behaviors that you liked that they do inside. Margaret, dig a hole in the backyard. Yep, highly probable behavior. Not for every dog, but like I said before, our terriers are probably high likelihood diggers. A lot of dogs, high likelihood diggers. Eating is a I mean, and it's why pretty much everything that we do in training comes back to the Premack principle, because eating is a high probability behavior. So when we offer treats, the reward isn't the food itself, but it's getting to eat the food, right? So going outside, digging, eating, sniffing is a very high probability behavior for dogs, pretty much all dogs. Playing, high probability behavior. Maggie says eating off the table. Yes. Eating wherever the food happens to be, absolutely. But for some dogs, yeah, getting up on the table or the counter, like my little troublemaker has been. How about chasing, or just running, or moving at all? Anybody who's got, especially an adolescent or a young puppy, do they ever, like, except when they're sleeping, do they ever hold still? They're always moving. Moving is a high probability behavior. And so if you think about that, like, if moving is a high probability behavior, and high probability behaviors can be used to reinforce low probability behaviors, if you're trying to train a stay, you could reward them by offering them the opportunity to move after they've stayed as long, like up to the criteria that you've set for that training session. Um, like that, I don't know. These are my mind-blowingly cool moments of learning, like when I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like if I'm asking my dog to stay, I can reward them by telling them they can move." Like that's cool. Um yeah. So I don't know. That's this is the kind of stuff that I'm like, how can we use this? This is amazing. I want to like I Dizzy's no longer technically an adolescent. He's a full-grown baby boy who's passed out right now cuz he got to play. Uh oh my gosh. Can you see him? Oh, I woke him up. But he's like, "What?" Yeah. Not bothering me today cuz we got outside. But yeah. So like I think a long time ago I started working with him on stay, but I just don't really need it that often. So I haven't worked on stay in a long time. But thinking this through, about how to use the Premac principle in that way, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I want to work on his duration stay. Like how long can we get this dog not to move um, by offering him the opportunity to move? Like it sounds so backwards, but like it works. It works, people. And that is what is so sexy about using this science and using this, like, say, I mean, thank you for pointing that out, like using this relationship based ideas to shift our animals' behavior. And yeah, like, and the thing is, like, you don't, I guess this is just another cool thing is like, if you're working with an animal that like you live with in your home, then the relationship piece is important because because one, like you're with them all the time, and so if sometimes you're doing all this like great stuff worth for them, and then sometimes you shift back into that like whole adversarial um, mindset, then you're introducing a bit of confusion and a bit of um, yeah, just uncertainty on the part of the animal. Like if they never know what to expect from you, that's a problem. So the relationship piece is important when you live and deal with an animal on a regular basis. But and here's the cool thing is that like you don't need to have any relationship with an animal to be able to apply these things. You don't have to ever touch an animal to be able to train them to do these things. If you're using these principles, um, like you can achieve amazing things. I mean, marine mammal trainers train like dolphins and killer whales and beluga whales like to do amazing things, and they don't have to even be in the water to do that. Um, like that's cool, right? Which means that we might like I, technically, like, I mean, we want to touch our dogs, and I'm not saying don't touch your dog, but like you don't need to ever put hands on a dog to train them. And if you think about how like in like traditional ways of training that are becoming more outdated and obsolete, really, like where people felt like in order to train a dog to sit you had to push their butt down, like you don't you don't have to touch the animal at all, and you can train an amazing beautiful sit. There's like, did you know there are different types of sits that you can train a dog to do? You've got a tuck sit and a rock back sit, and they look different. And if you're ever competing, like you might learn the difference, and you might want to train a one kind over the other, or you might want instead of your dog to sit and kind of like relax on one hip, you might want them to have a more straight, like you can get so precise, and all of that without ever touching a dog. um I mean, cool stuff. um Karen says Candy always wants to chase the birds when she's outside, but when I change the tone of my voice she will stop. um yeah, I mean, excuse me, bird chasing high probability behavior, absolutely. Um, yeah, Dizzy will chase. I think he'd rather chase rodents than birds. He'll watch birds a lot of times, but some dogs, especially like labs and like yeah, any sporting dog, hunting dogs, retrievers, like yeah, birds are that's in their genes to like want to watch birds and chase birds. So yeah, very high probability behavior. That's a high probability behavior that may not always we may not always like be able to use that as a reinforcer, and we may not always want to, because also what behaviors your animal practices, they get better at. So if say, I mean, like Karen, and Candy as an example, like if you didn't want her to chase birds, then you're going to want to stop her before she ever chases birds, because the more times in her life that she chases a bird, the more likely she is to chase birds in the future, because it probably feels really fun and really good for her. So yeah, and Maggie says my lab roots out moles. Yep, Dizzy's actually caught one before, and that was kind of a terrifying moment for me, that I had to really test my recall that I'd taught him. And luckily he was still pretty new to me, so he had just done all this training, so the recall like incredibly worked. Um, but I am under no illusions that's always gonna work. And in fact, we haven't really been practicing recall a lot recently, and I probably should brush up on it, because I think we used to go to beaches and parks where there were, well, actually we lived in a in a place where there were mole holes literally all around our house, front and back. I lived in a weird place. I was like in a forest, and so we had like fields all around, and there were moles everywhere. Um, and so I really I had to have a good recall. Um, but there were, I mean, it was also like a lot of wildlife, and so he would find carcasses and try and recall a dog off of a carcass. Like, good luck, right? But like I said, we had just done all of this, uh, all of this amazing recall training, and he blew my mind. I mean, he really impressed me. I did not think it was going to work, but because of all the practice, and because of I was rewarding with very high value food. In his case, for recalls, I was rewarding him with like gross, nasty, just raw ground meat. Um, so if you think about it, like, I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. Like, he could find his own dead bird carcass and like try and eat that, or if I call him and he runs to me, I can give him like a bunch of like fresh, delicious, disgusting meat. Um, like that's probably the only reason that it worked. But there were a few instances where we were out at a place, he was off leash, he found something like that, and in this one case, he had actually caught a live mole or vole. I don't know if there's a difference, but it was a live rodent, and like you don't want your animal to have a live rodent. Like they can bite the dog, that can be dangerous, with infections, and if the dog actually like killed and ate it, like who knows what they like. I just didn't want to deal with that. So I called him, and I'm just like, I just couldn't believe it. It's insane. Um, yeah. So um, let's see. Karen says we live in town, and I'm so scared that someone will fly down the road and hit her. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I was told that Jack Russells have a lot of energy, and that is the truth. Understatement of the century. Yeah, Jack Russells have so much energy. Yeah, and they're terriers, and they're all about chasing critters. So yeah, definitely something to be aware of, and you want to try and train a really good recall. So Karen, maybe if you're interested, I mean, of course, I'm going to let you all know when I get this recall class up and ready to go. But if anybody else, yeah, if you want to brush up on that recall, like it's probably the most important cue that you could train a dog. Like it's a life-saving cue in some instances, especially if you're living in a city where there are cars and maybe people aren't always paying attention, and sometimes things happen. Our dogs get loose. So yeah, recall's a good one to have. Um, but it's very hard to like call a dog, especially a dog like a terrier, off of live prey. Like squirrels, Sarah. Yes, squirrels are the bane of every dog owner's existence. Squirrels are probably like the thing that is hardest for me to like get Dizzy's attention back. Like we've sat at the park and I've let him just like watch squirrels. He's on leash, so I don't let him chase them because I don't want him to practice it, like I said. So, but yeah, squirrels are fascinating to dogs. um, Maggie says, "Do I need to discourage this? I usually thank him for protecting the yard." No, no, this is totally your preference. Like I was saying, I meant to say that for Karen who lives in town, and you know, if her Jack Russell is in the habit of chasing birds and maybe like pulls the leash out of her hand and runs into the street, like that puts his or her life in danger. So a person in that situation might not want to let their dog practice that sort of behavior. But if you live on a farm and you want I mean, for a lot of people, that's why they get dogs, is to like keep the critters away. So no, it totally depends on your situation, your life, your dog. If it's not a problem, there's no problem. It's only a problem if you just don't think that that's good for your dog. um, so and that's true for a lot of like when we talked about house rules one day, like any of those things that like some people will tell you, like you shouldn't let your dogs on the furniture because then they'll think they're dominant, and like other nonsense like that. Like do whatever you want, like I mean, almost, as long as you're not putting anybody else in danger. You can make whatever rules you want for your dog, like chase critters, don't chase critters, uh sit on the couch, don't sit on the couch, sleep in the bed, don't sleep on the bed, like whatever you want your house rules to be, make them your rules. And that's fine, like I'm not gonna complain. It's just I'm just here to help people enforce the rules that they want to have in their home. So yeah, that's where that goes. Karen says, Candy once pulled a mole out of the ground by its head. Ooh. And I told her that I don't think so, Miss Thing. You are not bringing that in the house to play with. Ooh, yeah, nope, don't want that in the house at all. At least I don't. That's the other thing she likes to chase, squirrels. Yup. Squirrels. Oh, poor squirrels. Sarah says, I prefer herding dogs. Yeah, and that's kind of where breed differences come into play. Like I've been using terriers as the example here because they they're often, you know, like over the top drivey, like they want to go after critters, and they're the diggers in a lot of cases. The herding group of breeds have their own tendencies, you know, like healers and corgis, you know, are notorious heel biters, because that's what's been bred into them. Like that is the way that they herd. Border collies, on the other hand, have a different method of herding that's, again, for generations, for hundreds of years, bred into their DNA to like do the eye stalk thing where they get really low and they just like stare. Like that's a border collie thing. Welcome, Dizzy. So hi, baby. You're sweet. Karen said she put down the mole. She put it down, and I only told her once. That is pretty amazing. That is like incredible for any dog, let alone a Jack Russell. So, I mean, that's good, and lucky for the mole too. I feel bad for these rodents sometimes, but we share the world, so I guess they gotta live with it. But Yeah, so like I don't know, these are the things that our dogs do, and I we got onto the whole chasing critters thing because of talking about the Premack principle, and like how critter chasing is a highly likely behavior, and theoretically you could use that to reinforce other behavior that you like. So like if you call your dog to you and they come, you can reward them. Instead of food, you could reward them with the opportunity to chase a bird. If it's safe, if it's okay for your world, your lifestyle. But yeah, like I said, if you live in a place where you're worried about your dog like dashing into the street and having like, then maybe that's not the reward you want to choose. um but yeah. um so terriers bounce. Yeah, I guess I've seen terriers bounce. Do you mean like I'm picturing this? There's this video of a, not a terrier but a Shiba Inu like doing that like happy dance thing. Is that the kind of bouncing you're talking about, or like literally the popcorning, the that type of jumping? Because I see that with a lot of dogs, not just terriers. But I love, oh my god, the little bouncy happy dance is like my favorite thing. Dizzy doesn't do that. I wish he did though. Hi baby. He's just a hungry monkey. Hi bunny. Mm. um yeah, so I have shared with you the coolest thing. Probably actually it's a few cool things. The coolest things that I've learned so far in my journey. Um, that whole like that you can train up cues so that your cues become reinforcers, and you can use those reinforcers to create these behavior sequences and these chains so that you get so much more of the behavior from your dog that you like. I don't know, that's incredibly powerful, incredibly cool if you ask me. And I'm excited to see like how like all the different applications, like what can we teach our dogs using that principle. um and oh, thanks Karen, he's so adorable. I think so. Sarah says, that's me. I'm a border collie. Excellent stink eye. Yeah, they're all about the stink eye. Don't even think of you, sheep, you. Oh, and he's back on the box. Good boy. Okay, well, I guess this is becoming a thing. My Jennifer embarrasses herself trying to toss Dizzy treats section of the show today. I'm gonna get better. You just watch. One of these days, I'm gonna be able to toss it backwards and get it right. Hey. Nope. Still can't do it if I'm not looking. um, but yeah, I don't know. So, do you guys think that's cool? Do you think it's as cool as I do? Like, I don't know. Just remember that like in order to get all of these cool, sexy benefits out of the training that we do with our animals, you do want to make sure that you're using positive reinforcement, that you're not working with your animal in an adversarial mindset, that's not how you view your relationship, that we're not using punishment and introducing that negativity and that confusion to your animal. Damn it. um, and that you have to practice like a behavior a lot so that you're certain that your animal knows those cues in order to be able to use them that way. So don't give up. Keep working with your animal, because training is that enrichment too. It doesn't have to be a food puzzle that you packed up and gave them. Training itself can be the food puzzle, can be the enrichment. And it's this nice little cycle that just makes your lives together better. So this is where I leave you. We'll definitely talk more about this stuff, and later in the week, we're going to be talking about muzzles and muzzle training, and how this is a really good thing. And then on Friday, we'll get to we'll get creative with some food enrichment puzzles for you. So yeah, if you're interested in all that, definitely hit subscribe on YouTube or like or follow on Facebook. And if you know anybody else who might enjoy this information, please share it with them. It's a great way to support me and being able to continue this work. And of course, thank you all who have joined the conversation with me today. And I will see you later in the week. Have a great one, guys. Bye bye.